Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking into AI coding assistants, and specifically Claude. We're going to try to figure out why some developers are choosing it over some of the big names out there, like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT.
Okay.
Our guide for this deep dive is a research paper by tech veteran Srini Katta. He really digs into what makes Claude stand out from the crowd.
Awesome.
If Copilot and ChatGPT are like those fancy Swiss Army knives, for coding, is Claude the sleek, specialized tool that's winning over developers?
Right.
Let's find out.
Yeah, one thing that Kata points to in his research is that developers are starting to look beyond just code generation. They're searching for an AI assistant that really understands the context of their project, almost like a coding partner.
Okay. So context is king. What
Well,
makes Claude so good at understanding the bigger picture of a project?
well, think about it this way. Imagine you're working on a complex e-commerce site.
Okay.
There are so many interconnected features, product
Yeah.
catalogs, shopping carts, payment gateways, the whole nine yards. You need an AI assistant that can keep track of all those moving parts, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you don't want to suggest a change that accidentally breaks the checkout process when you're busy, tweaking the product catalog or something like that.
Right. So Claude won't suggest something that just totally messes everything up while I'm focused on something else.
Exactly. Claude excels at grasping the context of even the most complex projects. It's almost like having an AI pair programmer who's always a few steps ahead, anticipating those potential conflicts and suggesting solutions that fit seamlessly into your existing code base.
That would save a ton of time and headaches for sure,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with a large code base.
Absolutely. And Kata found that this ability to understand context leads to fewer errors, more relevant suggestions, and just a smoother workflow overall.
Now let's talk about a developer's worst nightmare, debugging.
Yeah.
Kata highlights Claude's problem-solving skills here, especially when it comes to finding and fixing those pesky bugs.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting. Claude goes beyond just identifying bugs. It can actually analyze your code, pinpoint the root cause of the problem, and even explain the issue in a way that's easy for a human to understand.
So it's not just a code monkey pointing out errors. It's more like an AI detective.
Yeah, let's Sherlock Holmes for your code.
Right. Exactly. Think of all those times you spend hours, maybe even days, hunting down a bug, only to find out it was a tiny typo that you completely missed.
Oh, yeah.
Claude could spot that in seconds.
Yeah, potentially.
Save you a lot of frustration.
Totally.
Okay, I can see why developers are getting excited about this.
Yeah.
But what about security? In today's world, data privacy is a huge concern, especially when you're working with sensitive information.
Absolutely. And that's another area where Claude really shines.
Yeah.
Kata emphasizes Claude's commitment to data privacy. It doesn't send your proprietary code to external servers, which is a major advantage for companies dealing with sensitive data.
So if I'm developing something like financial software or a healthcare app where security is paramount, Claude offers that extra layer of protection.
Precisely. It minimizes the risks associated with data leaks and intellectual property theft, which are very real concerns for many companies these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Kata even points out that this approach to data privacy aligns with the growing emphasis on responsible AI development, which is a big plus.
Okay, now let's move on to something I know all developers love, customization.
Yes.
Kata talks about how you can fine-tune Claude's outputs from the level of detail to matching a project's specific coding style.
Right, and this level of customization goes beyond personal preferences. It's crucial for maintaining consistency across large projects, especially when you have teams of developers working together. It's like setting up guidelines for Claude, like a coding style guide.
So it's like having an AI assistant who learns my company's style guide and automatically applies it to the code it generates.
Exactly. That means less time spent manually reformatting code and more time focusing on the actual development work. And in the long run, this consistency makes the code base much easier to maintain. And, speaking of different coding styles, Claude's support for a wide range of programming languages is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah?
Kata highlights how this can be a game changer, especially for folks who are working with legacy systems or in specialized fields that rely on, less common languages.
So if you're a developer who's ever felt limited by the language support of other AI coding assistants, Claude might be what you've been looking for.
Exactly. It's like having a multilingual coding buddy who can jump into any project without missing a beat.
That's awesome.
Kata specifically mentions how this broad language support can be a lifesaver for developers working with older systems, which can often be a real pain to maintain.
Yeah, for sure. Now, development is rarely a solo endeavor. How does Claude handle collaboration?
That's a great question. And Katta points out some really interesting features in Claude that can really boost teamwork.
Hmm.
One thing that stood out to me was the ability for multiple developers to interact with Claude simultaneously.
So it's not just one person at a time like with some other tools.
Right. This real-time collaboration can make the development process much smoother and reduce those back and forth communications that can slow teams down. It's like having Claude as an extra pair of hands, helping everyone stay in sync.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
And what about documentation? Keeping track of everything can be a challenge when you're working on a large project with a team.
Absolutely. That's where Claude's automatic documentation generation comes in. Katta explains how Claude can generate detailed documentation and comments automatically as you code. This not only saves time, but also ensures that everyone on the team has access to clear, up-to-date information about the code base.
So it's like having a built-in technical writer who's always on top of things.
You could say that it's all about leveraging AI to improve those aspects of development that are often overlooked, but crucial for team success. And Katta sees this as a major advantage of using Claude, especially for larger teams.
One thing that really struck me in Katta's paper was Claude's superior natural language processing. It sounds like you can communicate with it almost as naturally as you would with another human developer.
Yeah, that's a key point. Katta emphasizes Claude can handle even vague or incomplete instructions. Instead of just throwing an error, it will actually ask clarifying questions to make sure it understands what you're trying to achieve.
So if I tell Claude, hey, I want to make this function more efficient, it won't just blindly start rewriting code.
Exactly. It will engage in a conversation with you to figure out what efficient means in the context of your project. That ability to have a more nuanced dialogue is what sets Claude apart from some of the other tools out there.
Okay, so we've talked about context debugging, security customization, collaboration, and even natural language processing. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's becoming increasingly important in the world of AI code optimization.
Right. This is another area where Claude excels. Katta highlights how Claude can assist with refactoring and optimizing code, going beyond just writing new code from scratch. It can analyze your existing code and suggest ways to make it more streamlined, efficient, and easier to read.
So it's like having an AI code reviewer who's always on the lookout for ways to improve my code.
That's a great way to put it. Think about the long-term impact this can have on your projects. By helping you keep the code base clean and optimizes, Claude can reduce technical debt and make future maintenance much less of a headache. Katta argues that this focus on code optimization is a key differentiator for Claude, especially for teams working on complex, long-term projects.
That makes sense. Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on deployment. I know that some organizations have very specific needs when it comes to where their code and data are stored.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Katta addresses that in his paper. He mentions that Claude offers flexible deployment options, including the ability to install it on-premises.
Can you explain what that means for those who might not be familiar with the term?
Sure, on-premises deployment means that instead of relying on a cloud-based service, you can install and run Claude on your own servers within your own data centers. This gives you complete control over your data and infrastructure.
So for industries with strict regulatory requirements like healthcare or finance on-premises, deployment provides that extra level of security and control.
Exactly. It's all about providing options that meet the diverse needs of different organizations. And Katta sees this flexibility as a major advantage of using Claude.
Well, sounds like Claude offers a pretty comprehensive package for developers.
Katta's research definitely paints a compelling picture of Claude's capabilities, especially when it comes to context, privacy customization, and ethical considerations.
It seems like AI coding assistants are becoming more and more sophisticated every day.
Yeah, definitely.
Where do you see this technology heading in the future?
Well, Katta's research suggests that tools like Claude aren't meant to replace human developers.
Okay.
They're designed to augment their abilities, kind of like a superpowered sidekick.
So it's more about collaboration than competition.
Exactly. AI can handle those repetitive or time-consuming tasks like generating boilerplate code or finding those tiny bugs that drive you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This frees up developers to focus on the more creative and strategic aspects of software development.
That makes sense. It's like having an AI partner who can take care of the grunt work while you focus on the big picture thinking and innovation.
Right. And as AI continues to evolve, we can expect even more powerful and specialized tools to emerge, further transforming the way we build software.
Wow.
Imagine AI assistants that can not only write code, but also help you design user interfaces, test your software, and even deploy it to different platforms.
It's an exciting time to be a developer, that's for sure. So to wrap up, it sounds like Claude offers a compelling combination of features for developers, especially when it comes to context, privacy customization, and flexible deployment.
Katta's research definitely points in that direction. He sees Claude as a potential game changer for those who prioritize these aspects of development.
But as with any tool, the best choice ultimately depends on your specific needs and the nature of your projects.
Absolutely. It's important to explore different options and see which one best aligns with your workflow and development philosophy. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. And here's a final thought-provoking question for you, our listener. If AI coding assistants are indeed the future of software development, what aspects of this field will remain uniquely human? What skills and perspectives will always be in demand? It's something to ponder as we navigate this evolving landscape. That's all for today's deep dive into the world of Claude and AI coding assistants. We encourage you to check out Srini Katta's research and explore these tools yourself to see how they can enhance your development process. Until next time, happy coding.